Welcome to the Legal Leaders Podcast with Ollie Rupp. Mark Pike is the Associate General Counsel at Anthropic. Anthropic is in a period of explosive growth, recently raising a $3.5 billion Series E round, bringing its valuation to $61.5 billion. Mark has a track record of making successful strategic career bets, each at a company that experienced massive hypergrowth. He previously worked at Facebook and Slack, where he joined the team when it was just a few hundred employees. In this episode, we break down what it means to be an effective product counsel, how legal teams can work closely with product and engineering to launch new features, and prioritizing learning and growth in one's career. We hope you enjoy the episode. Hey, Mark, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for inviting me. Excited to be here.
Of course. First off, congratulations on the latest $3.5 billion Series E round of fundraising. How does it feel?
It's exciting times in the space. It's exciting times at our company. And I think this will just help us move forward with a lot of our goals.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I saw there was you're on the heels of a $4 billion round from last year. I'm sure the team is keeping busy. But yeah, super excited to dive into your amazing background. You've worked at some of the top tech companies in the Bay Area. Before we get into the career discussion, I usually like to kick things off with an icebreaker. So in doing my research, I noticed you created a Slack icon or a bot that seems to be very well known called the Ruth Bader Ginsburg bot. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Ruth Bader Ginsburg bot. Sure. So I was an attorney at Slack. I was a product lawyer for a number of years. And much of Slack's value proposition is it helps you automate some of the more tedious work and help you really get your best work done. And in our legal department, we were having to send out a lot of automated messages to people to remind them to take certain trainings. And we realized that if we leveraged a Slack bot, we could get a better response. And so we updated the Slack bot and gave it a gavel and had it look a little bit like RBG. And it really resonated with everybody at the company and really embraced the culture. So, yeah.
Yeah. In your LinkedIn post, that seems to be what everyone commented about when you were announcing that you were going to Anthropic.
It was definitely a cultural legacy I hope I left behind at Slack. And just a good example of the legal team embracing the technology that we support to get our best work done. Yeah.
Love it. Nice. Well, so you've been at Meta / Facebook, Slack, and most recently Anthropic. I would love to take it back to when you were in law school. You had just finished up at Duke and you attended William and Mary, graduating in 2009. And you did work at a law firm briefly at McCandlish. So I want to know, what did things look like as you were graduating from law school? Did you know sort of where you wanted to end up?
I always knew in going to law school that I wanted to focus on sort of the intersection of law, technology, and policy. And I graduated in 2009, as you mentioned. It was sort of at the height of some recessionary things that were going on. A lot of my classmates were having their offers rescinded at big law firms. I was not the best law school student. I want to start there and say I did not have that many opportunities and knew I was going to have to go down a bit of a non-traditional path. That's what was going on in 2009. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the time, did you want to end up in big law or did you want to end up in-house, or were you thinking more government roles?
I sought out every opportunity I could in law school to work on technology issues. The summer after my 1L year, I worked at the Electronic Privacy Information Center, EPIC, and did a summer clerkship there. I did a lot of externships. I was just very interested in tech things. I wasn't getting those on-campus interviews for big law firm jobs. It was just not an opportunity that was going to be afforded to me based on performance. I was in Colonial Williamsburg. And so at the time, a lot of my college classmates had already moved out to the Bay Area and were encouraging me to drop out of law school, actually, and come join them out in the Bay Area. And I was like, no, I think I need to stick it out here. And And sure enough, when I graduated in '09, I reached back out to them and was like, "Hey, are these tech companies still hiring?" And so that was sort of my path there. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, it really goes to show like a lot of folks who are just like set on big law or nothing else, there are other paths where you can be highly successful, and it's not always something you can see, from the position you're in at the time. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's such a good point. I think it would have been really difficult to sort of draw a linear path. Um, but looking back, I can connect some of the dots. My last day of class in college was the first day on campus that Facebook arrived. This was 2004. For those of you who have seen The Social Network or know the history there, Facebook was just going really viral on campuses in 2004. So my last day of college was the first day that social media really arrived, and there was at least something that I bookmarked in that moment that was like, oh, this might be a thing. I then moved to DC, worked a variety of odd jobs. I worked on the '04 campaign. I delivered subpoenas. I worked at a think tank and helped them build out their website and build out their web presence. So I was learning about technology. I was learning skills. I decided that I wanted to go to law school. In law school, I really focused on this, again, this nexus of law, policy, and technology. And so in that moment in '09, when I didn't know what my next step was, I knew that if I kept focusing on seeking out opportunities where I was growing and learning, that hopefully something would work out. And so that's how I connect the dots there. Yeah.
Amazing. So you had known about Facebook, and so how did the opportunity come up? Because you started in 2010. So did you move to the Bay Area, or how did you even figure out that they were
Yeah.
hiring?
So right after I graduated in 2009, I actually took a brief detour back to DC. Uh, Law schools often give out these like post-grad internship type things so they can juice their numbers and make sure everybody has employment. So I did one of those. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I worked at the Department of Homeland Security for a few months while I was trying to figure out what my like full-time next thing was. Um, I then my wife was still in law school. After my internship, I moved back in with her and was like, I don't know what's next. And I just applied for a lot of jobs. And I called back up those friends from Duke, from college, and said, "How's that Facebook thing still going? Do you think I might be able to find a place there? I don't have to be a lawyer. I'm okay with just being there and learning." Sheryl Sandberg famously has this saying that's attributed to her that when you get offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat. Just jump in and learn. And so that's what I did. So I packed my bags and I moved to the Bay Area in February 2010. And I started on a team that was called doing platform policy work. So 2010, Facebook was a moment where Farmville and similar social games were all the rage. And
Yeah.
Facebook had a small team of people and that were reviewing those apps to make sure they were respecting Facebook's platform policies. So my first real full-time job out of law school was to play video games for several hours a day at Facebook and then send cease and desist letters to developers to ensure they were respecting Facebook's policies.
Incredible. I remember Farmville. It was a lot of fun.
Great.
And just to give an idea of size, I mean, how big was the legal team at Facebook at the time?
So I didn't join the legal team. So that goes back to the Sheryl Sandberg saying of don't ask what seat. I was on the operations team, user operations. My job was to, again, just to like to make sure that these games were respecting Facebook's policies. Legal team was small. The whole company was pretty small then. It was I think there was about 1,000 employees at the time. We were all in one building on just off Stanford's campus in Palo Alto.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
insane. I mean, to think about how much the company's grown now. And then wait, I did see you transition to the IP team about a year later. So were you actively looking for those opportunities, or was the company just in this stage of hyper growth?
Yeah, it was stage of hyper growth. So did platform policy type work for a year. Then I joined a team that was building out the notice and takedown processes. So, Facebook's at that time several hundred million users, getting a lot of copyright and trademark complaints and requests to remove content. And so the team that helped handle those was growing, and I was interested in had some background in dealing with intellectual property matters as someone with law school training. So I joined that team. I worked on that for about 2 years to basically scale out a larger notice and takedown operations program, and really just had a crash course in like hyper growth tech stuff that has served me well as someone who's now working as a product lawyer.
I love it.
I then switched jobs again inside of Facebook in like around, so 3 years into the job. Facebook has a consent decree with the FTC around 2012-ish. And so I started working as a privacy program manager, and did that for a number of years to help scale out Facebook's like privacy by design process.
Incredible.
So I did that until 2016, until I left the company.
6 years at Facebook. I mean, I gotta ask. I mean, you did get stock options back then too, right? And just seeing the company growth has been so incredible. I mean, can you sort of speak to like, I guess sort of the incentives around being in house, working at a tech company, because most folks who work at law firms get paid straight up, just in cash. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I mean, it wasn't a motivating factor at the time. I just was excited in 2010 to have a job out of law school. I came in as an hourly wage employee. I was excited to get a little bit of equity, but it wasn't something that was life changing in the moment. It also wasn't a motivating factor. I think just the opportunity to learn and grow and be part of that experience was what was most enriching. Yeah.
Amazing. And then you left in 2016 to Slack. I'm curious how that opportunity came up.
I welcomed our first son into the world in 2015, and I was commuting down to, so this is the Berkeley Law podcast. So I was commuting from the East Bay down to Palo Alto, or Menlo Park at the time, and I was exhausted. And that commute was getting to be pretty brutal. That was one reason why I started looking for new opportunities. I also felt in the privacy program role, I was just interested in going somewhere smaller again and having a chance to learn and grow. I noticed Slack was something everybody was starting to talk about as a fun way to get your best work done. And so I saw they were hiring actually in a product policy role. And I applied on a whim and really enjoyed meeting the team and decided to take a leap and go back somewhere small again, try to get another seat on another rocket ship.
Amazing. And how big was Slack at the time?
Couple hundred people. I want to
So
say
this was a gamble in a lot of ways.
Sure. Yeah, it was like between 250 and 500 people. It was, I mean, a bit of a gamble, but it was like a bet on myself that I'd be somewhere where I'd be learning again and having a chance to grow. So, I felt like it was a risk worth taking. And then I knew if it didn't work out that hopefully I'd gain enough experience where whatever the next opportunity might be, I could, again, connect the dots going backwards and showing how I was able to grow from it.
Love it. And what kind of things were you working on when you first joined at Slack?
2016 Slack. Slack largely looks the same today as it did back then in 2016. So it was a period where people were starting to adopt it internally. My first role was just to assist on like product policy issues as the product was expanding. it was just a period of hyper growth, doing a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Nice. And how did things change as you progressed? Were there, because I didn't find anything online in terms of like how your career progressed at Slack. So were there
Sure.
promotions or yeah, how did the growth look like for you?
Sure. So we were growing very quickly, and the team didn't have a product lawyer. And so the company hired a general counsel in late 2016, early 2017. And I found myself like becoming a lawyer for the first time in my life, 6 or 7 years out of law. Yeah, 7 years out of law school. And so they were interviewing product lawyers. I was on the interview loop. At a certain point, one of the lawyers on the team asked me if I wanted to, like it seemed like I knew enough about product issues and legal issues. And this was based on a lot of the experiences I had earlier in my career at Facebook, where I knew enough about product to speak the language of product managers and designers and engineers. I could speak their language, and I also knew enough about legal issues that I could like fit in with the legal team. And so product counseling is really the ability to be at the nexus of those places and provide that sort of hub and spoke the GC of product essentially. So I joined the legal team in 2017 as the first product lawyer there, and was the
Wow.
only product lawyer for a number of years. Only person solely focused on product counseling. Yeah. Um,
Incredible. Yeah,
yeah.
and can you say more about what does that relationship look like as you're working with PMs and engineers to sort of build out the product?
Yeah. It's a really fun job. I love product counseling. All right, there's a great blog post about the origin story of product counseling written by Amac and Nicole Wong that I would encourage your listeners to check out if they're interested in product counseling. But this role didn't really exist earlier in my career. It was something that was developed at Google where they realized that if they could put somebody from the legal team to sit within the product function and basically identify legal issues and be seen as a creative problem solver within the team, and then connecting them to the right subject matter experts and helping identify issues. It really helped speed things up and find risk mitigation strategies in a more effective way. Prior to that, product team would build something, they'd come to the legal team a day before and say, hey, we're going to release this tomorrow. But now with the advent of product counseling, you're really part of the team. You understand their motivations and goals, and can help them come up with solutions that fit best.
That's so awesome. So it sounds like more proactive as opposed to reactive. And I can't help but ask, like, is it, are there's, and I'm sure it varies across companies, but can it get thorny or is the relationship always pretty smooth?
Oh, there's certainly bumps in the road, but good product lawyers are able to do really good relationship management and again understand the motivations of their product team. There's going to be trade-offs. There's going to be times where you need to escalate things to decision makers within the company, but but good product lawyers can anticipate those and know how to advance things forward.
Got it. And can you maybe give an example? I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but I mean, Anthropic is launching products like on a weekly basis. Like, what does your role actually look like in launching something like Claude Code or Claude Computer?
Great question. So let's see. Which yeah, let's
It could be at Slack or at Anthropic. I mean,
yeah. So at Anthropic, I'm a product lawyer at Anthropic, and I help support a lot of our like B2B focused product offerings. So you mentioned Claude Code there. Um, sure, we it's a new beta research preview. We've realized that a lot of people really enjoy using Claude to help you write code. And so as we come out with new models, there's new capabilities that are unlocked. And so I sit closely with these teams and help them anticipate various legal issues that might come up as they're trying to go to market. Um, yeah.
got it. Love it. And I know we're talking about Anthropic, but I do want to ask, you had a long tenure at Slack, and in your farewell post, I mean, you had hundreds of people that were congratulating you and thanking you on all the great work you did. So, I mean, it sounded like, things were going really well at Slack. So I'm curious how the Anthropic opportunity came up.
Sure. Yeah, I was at Slack for a number of years. We um, we were acquired by Salesforce around 2020, 2021. And I stayed and learned a lot from my colleagues at Salesforce. Um, and eventually I got that itch to seek out another opportunity at again, uh, that smaller company where I can really contribute. Things are fast paced. I feel like that's where I do some of my best work. So with Slack, we always knew that Slack is this backronym for the searchable log of all conversations and knowledge. We always knew that at some point AI was going to come along and help you find the right thing at the right time, or that there'd be Slack bots that are like the chief of staff for everybody, and that AI would sort of transform that. I think we were a little bit early there, but around 2023, things like ChatGPT were starting to pop up. Anthropic was starting to make a name for itself on the research scene, and so AI was something that, as I thought about what might be a fun next step, was just felt like a thing I wanted to learn more about. And so reached out to Anthropic. They were hiring for product legal roles. And I think my experience in helping Slack build out its product legal function in that SaaS space and the B2B space was a good fit.
That's amazing. I mean, every company you've joined has turned out to be such an amazing, just for lack of a better term, strategic, bet on an industry, and they've all had such tremendous growth. Is it just by the nature of you being exposed to the tech industry, or how did you see these trends coming?
Oh, I don't think I can take credit for predicting how these things would turn out. A lot of this is just right place, right time, and being curious and open minded, and trying to again find out those hyper growth opportunities where you think your skill set might be useful. Yeah.
Gotcha. Amazing. And before we get into more at Anthropic, I do want to ask, as folks are maybe thinking about in-house roles, can you talk to some of the considerations about maybe wanting to do commercial work versus product work versus privacy work? What should folks be thinking about as they explore these types of roles?
That's a really broad question. I'm not sure. When you're getting started out, I think just keep an open mind and be curious and see what you're drawn to, what you feel like you can get into the mix on and provide value. And then I think eventually things just sort of reveal themselves.
Do you have to be more technical to do product work, or more transactional, more I don't know, customer facing for commercial type work, or do you think that matters?
That's a great question too. I'm non-technical. I have a curiosity about these things and try to learn how they work, but I don't think you have to be a coder to be a product lawyer. In the transaction space, I do think you have to know enough about the business, or to be a commercial lawyer, you have to understand the business. If you want to be a patent attorney for a technology company, you certainly need to probably have a little bit more of a technical underpinning to really add value there. So I think it's important probably to seek out some subject matter expertise in each of these areas to be most effective, but you don't have to start necessarily by already having those skills. I think early in your career, just sort of broadening your lens and learning more is a better place to start.
Gotcha. And then diving back down into some of the specific things that you think about on a daily basis, like in this day and age, what are some of the biggest risks in launching new products? I saw there was some litigation with Universal Music Group earlier last year. I don't know if that's something that you touch, but I do want to know like what are some of the biggest risks you think about as you're launching new products?
I, as someone who helps support our sort of B2B product offerings, I'm always customer centric and sort of like customer focused, ensuring that we're meeting the expectations of our customers. If they're in a regulated space, if they have extra compliance needs, I also do a lot of privacy counseling. So I'm thinking about end users and going through and understanding if there's any privacy risks in our product offerings. So those are big things that hop out to me. You mentioned IP as well. I think in the AI space, that's definitely something that all product lawyers are thinking quite a bit about as well.
How do you balance being, not being too risk averse because you're, the company's obviously moving fast. So how do you sort of balance being, taking risks versus being careful?
That's a really good question too. Yeah. I think you just get a feel for it. I often look to my executives to understand their risk tolerance and try to map onto that. So you definitely don't ever want to be a legal department that has a reputation for being the department of no. Instead, you seek out ways to get to yes, while also mitigating those risks that you see. But if you're constantly saying no, then business can languish and not continue to grow. So it's a balancing act for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, you have so much experience now that it makes sense when you say it's kind of by feel. But yeah, especially when the company is moving so quick. So, Mark, what are you working on these days at Anthropic? Are you? I noticed the company's hiring a lot, especially on the legal team. I saw your LinkedIn posts. So, can you talk like present day, what you're working on, and what the team looks like?
Sure. So when I joined, there were about 5 lawyers a year and a half ago. Since you've been poking around LinkedIn, you can probably see there's at least 2 dozen of us at this point, and we're continuing to grow, and we are hiring. So if anybody's catching this podcast, please check out our career site. Anthropic Legal is hiring. Um, these days, we have a few of us work on product legal issues. I have a number of teammates who work on commercial legal issues, uh, collaborate with intellectual property lawyers, litigators, corporate counsel. Got a great employment legal team that's hiring. So yeah, we're growing. The business is growing. When I first joined the company in 2023, it was we had a simple Claude.ai chatbot experience. As you just noted, we have a lot of new offerings that are out now. There's a beta offering where Claude can be part of the command line interface in your terminal and help you code. We have Claude for Work or Claude for Enterprise, ways in which you can collaborate within the workspace. We have an API, a robust API that allows you to integrate Claude into your own product offerings. We're available on third-party platforms like Google Vertex, Amazon Bedrock. So Claude is in a lot more places than it was when I first joined the company. And with that, as the business grows, we definitely need more lawyers to help us out.
Love it. And I'm very fascinated by the B2B aspect. I know you work with some of the biggest, tech companies like Zoom, Snowflake, and Pfizer. So how does Anthropic differentiate? Because I know you focus a lot on B2B.
Sure. I think a big differentiator that we have is our focus on safety. I think Anthropic has really been clear about that from the start. So large businesses trust us with their most sensitive and proprietary information as Claude interacts with it. They trust us to with Claude interacting with their own customers, their own end users. So I think that's a major differentiator that we have. I often think of the company as being 3 different companies at once. We're an innovative research lab. We have a bit of a policy think tank where we're trying to create a race to the top. And we also have a frontier model that we go to market with, that we commercialize. And so those 3 things really work well together, and each of them are a bit of a differentiator.
Gotcha. Love it. And then, Mark, last question here. Obligatory. Want to ask you the future of the legal industry with how AI is transforming it. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I did do a podcast recently, also with Berkeley, about AI and ethics in the legal industry. So I'll put in a plug there. Irene Liu has a fantastic podcast. I think it's called Coffee Break. It's part of the Berkeley Law Network. And we sort of opined on how to use AI within your legal practice in a way that's ethical. A lot of people are saying that you might not be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by a lawyer that uses AI better than you. And so if for the young people who listen to this podcast, your classmates who are just starting their career, a way you can get a leg up is by embracing technology. And lawyers have a bit of a reputation for being conservative in adopting new technology. And so you will be the first generation that natively in law school likely was using AI to understand and learn new concepts. You will be, the associates who are able to leverage AI to write briefs and understand things. So I suspect that AI is going to be part of our future, and lawyers who embrace it will be able to provide better client services. Will be able to make a big impact and a big difference. So, yeah, it's
Love
exciting.
love that take. And would you liken it to when the internet came out and folks were, in some ways equally as scared as it taking jobs or destroying certain industries? It's more of a tool that's going to make folks better at doing their jobs. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's some parallels there. Given this is like a career chat type podcast, if I could connect the dots backwards from that moment I mentioned when I was the last day on my college campus and social media was coming out, and I wasn't afraid of it. I wanted to learn about it. I was curious. And then when I graduated law school in '09 and landed my first job at Facebook, it was that curiosity of the new technology, wanting to see how it worked, being one of the first people to really understand it and be at that sort of intersection of the law, technology, and policy. I feel like I was ultimately rewarded in career growth because of that curiosity. And other lawyers who maybe were going down more traditional paths, I took a bit of a risk, and the technology continued to grow, and right place, right time. So, yeah.
Amazing. Incredible. Well, thanks so much for sharing more about your career, Mark. It's been truly amazing and a good learning opportunity to hear about your path in product counsel work. And I really appreciate you coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. This is such a cool idea for a podcast. I had a radio show when I was in law school, a college radio show. I feel like this is the evolution of that. So props to you for being an innovator here and having so many great conversations with career professionals. So
Thanks.
best of luck
Thanks so much.
as you progress in your career. So thank you.
Thank you.